Now I'm going to introduce Mrs. Tooley here. She is going to come up and talk a little bit about a subject that is, I'm sure everyone's going to have a lot of questions on, and that is writing grants. Complicated business, and we definitely need people with the talent to help us out.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, first of all, what I'm going to do is I've got some information I'm going to go ahead and pass out to everyone. This is just sort of a little cheat sheet for you as far as grant writing, fundraising, what I call fundraising faux pas, that the little mistakes can make a difference. And I'm thrilled to see so many churches here. Most nonprofits are aware of grant funding and what it can do. Unfortunately, a lot of churches do not take advantage of grant funding and the opportunities out there because for some reason or another they think that they do not qualify for grant funding when just because you're a church doesn't mean you do not qualify. A lot of companies and foundations will also fund faith-based organizations as long as it is an outreach to the community. If you're building a gym for your church to benefit your congregation, no. If you're building a gym for your church and you're going to use that as an after-school program or something that is going to maybe help low-income children, or it's going to help find jobs, or it's going to help do something in the community, there may be grant funding out there.
That's what we're in the process of doing, so talk to me.
And how many people in here are familiar or have applied for grant funding in the past? Okay, would you say that your grant funding experience has been positive or negative?
I thought it was just confusing.
Confusing. Are you foundation grants, corporate grants, or federal grants? Federal. And aren't you a church?
That's one of them.
Oh, okay.
For, so, yeah.
Oh, okay. Federal grants is a different animal. Corporate and foundation grants are actually, as long as you're researching those, though there are opportunities available within the area. A lot of times, like in Gibson County, your focus is on the businesses in Gibson County to fund your organizations. If you actually explore the opportunities, there are organizations, companies that will fund Gibson County because they fund Vanderbilt, Gibson, Ward, Posey, and the surrounding areas. And a lot of times people in this area are not taking advantage of those opportunities. And so what I wanted to basically just kind of do a run through, most of you may be familiar with this, but this is just kind of a checklist for grant funding. If you're not familiar with a grant is just a monetary award that's provided to a nonprofit organization to help implement or sustain a program or project. For faith-based organizations, foundation, or corporate grants are best. Eligibility, usually 501c3 letter, and that's your determination letter designation. I get a number of calls from individuals who are forming a nonprofit and they have not received their 501c3. Until you actually have that documentation, you cannot apply for a grant. In most cases, there's always exceptions, but for the majority, in most cases without that. And nonprofit organizations, again, are schools, churches, nonprofits in general. Put on here a list of places where you can find grant opportunities. The research is probably the most intense of finding the opportunities out there. Be aware that many of these are subscription-based websites. However, I am not sure about Gibson County Library, but the Central Library in Evansville actually has access to Foundation Center. It's a timed feature, but you can have access to it. Your best bet is to increase your likelihood of funding, and that is develop your project or program first. Don't try to look for funding opportunities and then say, what kind of program can we create to apply for this? Funders are looking to help you accomplish your goal. Read the guidelines carefully. Go through them, read them, highlight them, make sure you follow them exactly. section that says areas not funded in the guidelines, they're serious. People actually apply in an area that is not of interest because their project is so good that they just know they're going to fund it. They're not going to fund it because it has to fall in those guidelines. Watch your deadline dates and times. I've talked to people that missed the deadline by 5 minutes and had spent months on a grant application, and then it was kicked out. Attach all required documentation and enclose the requested number of copies. If it says it wants 12 copies, make sure you enclose 12 copies because they hand that out to the decision board. And online grant applications, has anybody experienced those yet? For a writer, they're a nightmare because we're wordy. That's what we do. We like to express ourselves. And online grants give you a character count or a word count. So you have to define your purpose, your mission, and what you're going to do, how you're going to do it in 150 words or less. And so make sure that if it has a character count, you are strict with that. Also, if you're using a word processor, you're using cut and paste, be very careful if you paste that it reads the way you want it to read. And just basically follow directions. And attachments that are often required, and especially for churches, you might want to watch this, is 501c3. Most of you would have that. Your mission statement. It's best if your mission statement is 3 lines or less. Some grant opportunities require a vision statement. So these are things that you can be developing, and that way you have them on hand. Non-discriminatory policy. Most grant opportunities want a non-discriminatory policy attached. Board of directors. Now, for churches, this can be your board. This can be your advisory board. Whatever steps you have in place, but they want names, titles, email addresses, and phone numbers. Your total organization budget. You're going to want that, what it was for the year. Your total budget for the year. Your project or program budget, detailed and outlined. They'll usually want a copy of your last audit or your Form 990 or both. And a lot of times they will want a list of project personnel. This is basically a resume of everyone on your staff that's going to participate. What are funders looking to basically support? They want the completed application with requested attachments. They want that request to match their funding area of interest. They want a mission match. Does your mission match the mission of the company? Required signatures. Partnerships. If you can partner with a company or an organization, that is going to enhance your chances of getting that grant. They're going to focus on the objective, the outcomes, and the outputs. They're also going to look at the input. What are you going to do to achieve the outcome? How are you going to measure it if it's successful? And how are you going to sustain it once the grant is through? A lot of times they're actually using LOIs or letters of interest or inquiries right now, and that they will determine from those how many people they invite to submit a full proposal. So you just have to look at what they're asking for. RFPs are not as common in nonprofits. That's usually for-profit request for proposal, but occasionally you'll run into that. Then also in your packet is just the top 10 faux pas of fundraising you can look at later. I don't know how I'm doing on time.
You're doing great.
Oh,
You're fine.
I was talking fast because I wanted to get through it, so I apologize for that, but I wanted to make sure I covered all of that information. Mistakes made, and I sort of did this in David Letterman type style, and I'm just a Letterman fan, I can't help that, but the 10 fundraising faux pas would be throwing together a fundraising event in less than 6 months. How many in here have 6 or more fundraisers a year? Okay, 4 to 6. 1 4. That's actually the best number because you can actually have too many fundraisers and they can become unproductive. And scheduling the fundraising event at the same time as other community events. How many, when you're having a fundraising event, actually check out your Chamber of Commerce website, check your community calendars, check just your schools, Are you in the middle of band camps or football games or vacations, spring break, holidays? Those type of things, especially like the schools, if your fundraiser is a youth-oriented event and you schedule that during that time, you're going to affect your attendance. Failing to create and follow a strict budget. Too many times fundraisers are planned and certain items are not written down, or we assume that it's going to be a donation, and then all of a sudden you have surprises midterm or day of. And if you do not have a strict budget of setting your fundraiser, you can be disappointed because what is made up, sometimes people have actually thrown fundraisers and ended up in the red. And that's extremely, because fundraisers are hard work. Depending on donated items, you can think you're going to get a donation, and you may be pretty sure that you are, but always put it in your budget just in case. Failure to make accommodations for inclement weather if the event is held outdoors. I will tell you the success of an organization can really be, what's the word I'm looking for? Your attendance may really suffer if you have a rain date for a fundraiser. It's best to have accommodations available in the event that you have bad weather, rather than schedule an alternative date. Failure to understand ordinances that can close down the event or obtaining necessary permits. I knew of a big fundraiser planned that a lot of money went into it. Part of it included an outdoor band. It was not checked on about noise ordinances. They were shut down. And the big draw for this fundraising event was the band. And so you need to check with your city to just make sure it's okay. Lack of marketing strategy. Too many times people don't even realize that there is a fundraiser. And you've got to use every channel available to market that fundraiser. Whether that is your newspaper ads, which most of those have community event listings. Of course, everyone here, I'm sure, is on Facebook, right? And those are great tools to let people know, create an event, let people know that those are out there. Talk to local television stations. See if there's an opportunity for you to go on air the day before, the day of, to promote the event. You'll have to contact them in plenty of time to see if they can get that scheduled. But a lot of times they're willing to accommodate that. Misunderstandings regarding professional fees. When you're going to have music, or you're going to have a speaker, or you're going to have different things, be sure and read the contracts. Be sure and read if you're supposed to provide certain equipment, sound systems. Maybe it's a band coming in. A lot of times when bands come in, drummers do not bring their own kit. You're expected to have a kit because that's one of equipment that is difficult sometimes. And a lot of times you can get a band for less money if you provide certain equipment. Equipment issues that can come up. If you have a sound system and you have no backup, and entertainment is a big part of your fundraiser, you're going to be in trouble on that. And number one is lack of forming a fundraising committee. You have one or two people trying to do this. And it is best to form a committee from the beginning, have everyone describe where they think their talent is, get that listed, and who's going to take charge of things, and work together. When you try to put on an effective fundraiser alone, something's going to get missed. And so that's kind of it, short and sweet. Do we have any questions? Okay.
Are you able to help people find grants? Is that part of what you do?
Yes, that's part of the research.
That's a big thing. People don't know where
Right.
to go, where to research for grants. There's, like you say, there's a lot of grants out there.
Right.
How do you find them?
Well, I utilize a lot of the different websites and things like that, and research is a big part of that. My business actually involves research. It involves the actual grant writing. It involves matching that company with the organization with the area of interest that they're wanting to fund. I have to talk to the client to find out exactly what is your project or your program, what are you looking to do to develop the writing on that. And then there's reporting. Whenever you do apply for a grant and you are awarded that grant, most grants require reporting, and that can be in 3 months, 6 months, or yearly of the duration of the grant. And now I will tell you, a lot of the funders are doing site checks. Site checks have been fairly common after an award has been presented to an organization. I recently had 2 funders request pre-site checks for proposals. And that was unusual because I had not had that before. But they found, I guess, in the past that proposals didn't, like if they were wanting to put on a project and then they checked and they really didn't have anything in place for it. So funders are getting a lot more strict than they have been in the past. And so you just need to make sure that you identify what you're trying to accomplish and clearly communicate that.
Do you have a set fee?
I am an hourly fee based on that for $40 an hour, because some people may already know who they're wanting to request from, so they don't need the research part. Or maybe they need the research, but they're going to write it themselves. Maybe they don't want the reporting, they'll do that themselves. It just depends on so the best way for me to invoice is through hourly. Yes?
This is not a question, but it's a comment. I belong to a group down in Evansville that helps people start small businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And lots of them come in, they want to know how to get a grant because they've heard they don't have to pay that back. So they're always wanting grants instead of loans.
And those aren't. I get calls like that. And there is a lot of misunderstanding about that. There are small business loans to start a business, but grants are not available. And now that said, I mean, if you are going to be a for-profit business and you're starting a big green project that's probably going to be $35 million, there's probably a federal grant that would help you on that. But other than that, there's not going to be a grant in that area. But is it SCORE, Small Business Administration, SCORE? Those are very good organizations to help you out if you're starting.
With the economic downturn, I know used to, they would say that for every 10 grants you write, you'll get maybe 1. Is that still the same, or with the economic downturn, is that worse?
Actually, those statistics, was the standard. What I've actually just found is, my personal opinion is that the majority of those, they didn't match something, or they didn't really try to explain their area of interest. And if it's a primary goal of the funder, that's what they're going to look at. Now, granted, funders have decreased the amounts they give, and they've decreased the number of organizations they give to, and many have gone to selected. And for those in the smaller nonprofits and faith-based organizations, and me, that is difficult, because this is where your chamber